Okay, well, if you're going to be in the video, you can't make so much noise. Hi folks, it's me, Michaela, and welcome back to my channel. I am here today with Mr. Man, Benjamin himself. He's decided to join. Do you have anything to say today? Very interesting, thank you. So I'm doing something that I don't think I have ever done on my channel before today. So instead of talking about books I read, books I want to read, or doing reading vlogs, I'm going to be doing just kind of like a general discussion on a reading topic that I recently found myself thinking about that I would just like to share my thoughts on. And that's the topic of spoiler-free reviews and spoiler-free vlogs, I guess, is kind of included inside the idea of a spoiler-free review, and why I think spoiler-free reviews are actually very important. I think in general that both spoiler-free and spoiler reviews are equally good, great, wonderful, important, and serve different purposes. Dude, don't bite me. What the heck? Rude. And as somebody who makes reading vlogs where I do both, though I think I generally tend to lean more spoiler-free reviews unless it is like a series vlog. So like my Throne of Glass vlogs are all spoiler-filled, but in general, if you just come across a random reading vlog from me where I don't necessarily tell you what the book is right from the beginning or the thumbnail, I try to keep it spoiler-free because I want to keep my videos accessible to people so they can watch it without worrying that I'm going to ruin a book that they haven't read yet. But also because I just think spoiler-free reviews are important to have in book discussions and are also important for you to give as somebody who reviews books. Just to kind of like start off, I'm going to say that this obviously is all just my opinion, and like many things with literature and the arts and writing, a lot of things are up to personal interpretation and opinion and are subjective. And I think that's like a major reason why spoiler-free reviews are important. And I'm going to get to that. First, spoiler-free reviews versus spoiler reviews. I think that spoiler reviews are very important and necessary. Obviously, they leave themselves to be more detailed and specific about occurrences in a book and therefore open up a much more nuanced dialogue between readers post reading a book. And I think that's great. You know, you can start many discussions from a spoiler review. Meanwhile, I think spoiler-free reviews offer a space for somebody who's looking into books or a specific book to see based off of the spoiler-free reviews without being spoiled for what the book is or happens in the book, to see if this is going to be a book that is good for them to read. And so I think that opens the door to encourage more readers to read the books that you're reviewing, or to not, because obviously I could give a spoiler-free review that is negative that might make somebody want to read the book because what I like and what they like might be totally opposite, and that's fine. But I think that in general, spoiler-free reviews encourage more reading, as I think they automatically, by being spoiler free, are targeted more towards people who obviously have not read the book, versus spoiler reviews being for people who have read the book and are wanting to discuss the book and their thoughts on it. Now that I've established that in a very long-winded way, I'm going to talk mainly about spoiler free reviews and why I think they're important for you as a reviewer to give. And I think the main part that this can all come down to is the fact that a book, a novel, and writing is so much more than just the plot. And I think forcing yourself to focus on not giving spoilers for a book, which would generally be the plot of a book, would be the spoilery part. But when you're forced to kind of remove plot from your thoughts on a book, it forces you to look deeper into what about the book you're liking and not liking. That can be the characters, the description of the characters, it can be wording, the prose, it can be the pacing of the book, it can be the setting, it can be the world building, it can be magic systems if you're talking about fantasy books, it can be the relationship dynamics between characters, it can be the point of view, it can be the setting if you like or don't like the setting, if it's multi-POV, how you feel about that. There's a lot of things that when you remove the plot, you can think about and narrow down exactly why you are not liking a book. Because I think in general, at least personally for me, the plot of a book is kind of like, the plot obviously is important, but I think there can be the same plot structure in a book, and I can love one and hate the other, and it's to do with all the other aspects of the writing, and I think that's really important to think about. And so I think spoiler-free reviews allow you as the reader and the reviewer to improve your critical thinking, which is a skill, okay? Critical thinking is a skill that unfortunately a lot of people, I think, aren't utilizing as much as they could be or working on, and it's difficult to do. But I think it also allows you to really reflect on what you like in a book so that in the future you can pick books that you're going to like more, other than just tropifying books or thinking about what the plot of a book is. What are the other aspects of the book that you like that you can look into for further reading, and is also going to be valuable insight to provide people who are reading your reviews, if you're somebody who's posting reviews for other people. However, I think it also just has, like I said, a personal importance as just you, if you're just reading and reviewing books for yourself, to be more analytical and critical about what you're reading, and to be able to express that is really important. And as somebody who grew up being very much a perfectionist, I remember in school struggling with voicing my thoughts and my opinions on literature and reading and books and other artistic such things, because I always wanted to have like the correct answer. And the thing is that opinions don't necessarily have a correct or right answer when it comes to reading, and instead it's based off of like, why do you think that and how can you justify that? And if we don't have the ability to critically look at what we're reading and then express that in words in detail about why we think that, then our opinion is not valid. But if you're able to say, I think this and I believe this because of this thing, and that thing that I read in it, then you're able to open up that discussion and you're able to think more critically about what you're reading, which I think then applies to other aspects of your life. I think this is also, as somebody who went to music school, I have multiple graduate degrees in music, performance, and opera, so I feel like I'm actually probably more qualified to talk about music than I am to talk about reading, but here I am on my reading booktube channel. But I think this also applies to music. I think that there is a lack of ability to critically word what our opinions are when we're talking about music, and I don't think you need to be qualified in order to discuss these things, right? You don't need to be qualified in music. You don't need to be qualified in literature or reading or English. You don't need to be qualified in these things to have an opinion on the art that you're consuming, because part of why like everything is subjective is because everybody has different lived experiences, and all of that comes together to make what you think about what you're consuming after all of the experiences you had previous to this moment different from what somebody else thinks, having viewed or consumed the exact same content. I think like a really great example of this is that when I first started reading romance books, I thought some were really great, and I now think if I went to go read those again, I probably might not think they're as great, because I've now read other romance books and I have more experience with romance books that I can then compare to and think, actually, I think differently about this book now than I did at the time I read it, because my experience has developed and changed. Wonderful. And I think with music, a lot of people right now will easily say, I didn't like that, I think that's bad, or this is great, that was amazing, this is my favorite. But then say why. Do you like it because you really like how the person's voice in this one section becomes breathier? What does that make you feel? Why do you think you like that part? Is it because the song feels too fast? Do you like how a tempo increases or decreases? Do you like that their quality in their voice is more whispery or screamy? Do you like the lyrics? Do you like the way they set the lyrics? Do you think that the lyrics, if they were spoken or sung faster or slower, would have been better for you? There's lots of ways to talk about aspects of art without knowing, like detailed about art. You can talk about music without knowing chord progressions and musical terms. Obviously, knowing those things can give you a better knowledge and a grasp on why you think those things, but art has reactions. It gives you a reaction to consume art in that way, no matter what the art is and no matter what your experience in those parts of the art are, right? I don't know about painting. I don't know about oil and acrylic and painting techniques and different brushes and stuff, but it doesn't mean I don't have an opinion on a painting I see. And I can talk about the colors, I can talk about the emotion that it evokes from me and why I think that emotion is being evoked, what I think is trying to tell me through the vocabulary that I have myself. And that comes from making yourself think about these things. And this also applies to reading. And so I think spoiler-free reviews are incredibly important for us to develop critical thought and to have opinions, because it's really easy to just say, I didn't like it, I did like it, and that's it. And the thing is that doesn't hold a lot of value. Obviously, it still holds value. Your thoughts have value. But I think it's really important to provide further insight on this so that you can be more critical of all the things around you and be able to voice why. I think it opens up discussions versus conflicts when you're able to properly speak on these topics and express yourself in a way that is more detailed and makes more sense to those you're trying to have these conversations with. And I think it also allows you to be more open to other people's thoughts and opinions. And I think that is highly important. I feel like this is all just like one big circle. Basically, I think it's important for us to be able to vocalize and express ourselves, and that forcing yourself into a space where you're removing what is the surface level of what you're discussing about allows you to really hone that skill and practice that skill of critical thinking and expressing your own thoughts and opinions. And I think that's really important. And I think that is what spoiler-free reviews allow us to do. And I think that spoiler-free reviews in books is self-improvement. And I think it is self-development. Again, I think it just allows you to think more critically. And I think in this day and age, thinking critically about what we're seeing and what we're consuming in all aspects of our life is incredibly important. It's the ability to hear somebody voicing an opinion, having a reaction to it, and knowing, why do I disagree with that? Or why do I agree with that? What is it about that is making me think this and this? And when we're thinking critically about things, it also allows us to not just accept everything that's being served to us. It lets you look at media, look at advertisements, look at all of these things that are being fed to us day in, day out, and think, do I actually want that, or is it just looking exciting on my phone? Is this what I want to consume? Do I want to buy that? Is this what I want to support? And I think that's important to do. And I don't think that this is only applicable to literature and kind of that higher level thinking art form of books and writing. I read a lot of probably what some people would call trashy books, popcorn books, but just because you're reading that doesn't mean that there isn't the ability to think critically about things, even when it's just entertainment. I read a lot of books that are just for entertainment and not for some kind of wanting to open my brain to deeper thinking and thought, you know? I read a lot of romance. I read a lot of fluffy books because they're fun, and sometimes you don't want to always read something that is going to be that thought-provoking or make you really reflect that much, because we're not always in a headspace to be consuming that kind of content, and that is fine and that's great. And again, everything has value. Nothing in this kind of realm, it's not like reading this fluffy book isn't as valuable as reading some great work of literature, because again, everything is subjective. But for example, I read a lot of romance books, and I feel like you can look at a romance book and you can read the romance books and you can still think critically about what in them do you like or not like. That's not just the plot. And if you don't like a character, why don't you like a character? Is it because of them doing this action? Is it because they have this type of thinking? Is it because this is how they treat other characters? I often have an issue in some romance books where I feel like a character is developed by just having a trauma slapped onto them. And I dislike that, because I want characters to feel that they're more in depth, that they have more to them than just this one event. event that happened in their life, because us as individuals obviously have many, many things that happen in our lives. Sometimes can feel, to me, in a book, if a character has experienced some kind of trauma in their past, and that's the only focus that they're ever kind of acknowledging in the book, that it feels like this character is just this one traumatic event that happened to them in the past that they're working to get through, and that there's nothing else to them. And that can feel very surface level, and it can kind of make me feel disconnected from the characters, because it doesn't feel like this is real life at all, because it's this person just went through this event and now here they are in this book and nothing else is going on, which is like not how that works. I also like to talk a lot about the pacing of a book. Do I feel like events are happening too fast? Do I feel like I have no idea of how the timeline is working because there's lots of pages of description, and then I realize at the end of it that actually only like one day has happened, and it feels like too much has happened in that one day because of the book? Does that make it feel like there's not enough tension, like there's too much tension in the plotting and the pacing of the book? You can talk about the character relationships. Do you think that these two characters now are suddenly saying that they're best friends, but you haven't seen anything in the book to show that they are best friends and they are connected, and so it feels like their relationship has gone from 0 to 100 really fast? There are these things that you can talk about. Do you think that the wording of the book is too descriptive and flowery, and so it's a little unclear? Is that something you like, or is it something that you dislike? I'm currently reading Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. She has a writing style and writing format where she doesn't use any quotations for dialogue, and there's often not even any formatting of like different lines for dialogue, and it's very like stream of consciousness thinking, and it makes you not realize sometimes, is this a thought that a character is having, or is this a thought a character is speaking out loud into a conversation? And that might be something that you really dislike because you don't understand what's going on, you find it difficult to follow. Or it could be an aspect that you really do like because it lets you think more, oh, I really feel like I'm in the character's head, and seeing all of this kind of just play out gives me an idea of the headspace that the character is in, and I actually think I can understand completely well what a character is saying versus what a character is thinking, and I actually really like this writing style. There's lots of things to talk about in books other than the plot, and I think sometimes just talking about the plot is holding us back from having proper discussions on reading, and I think it is holding us back, I don't know, just from being better reviewers and being more critical readers. And I think that's really important to work on. I think we talk a lot already about the fact that reading can make you a more empathetic person, but I also think that what makes you a more empathetic person from reading is being a critical reader and thinking about what you're reading, because what I believe makes you more empathetic from reading is reading about experiences that are not your own, but you can hear a story about something that you've never experienced and still just kind of have no thoughts and feelings about it. You have to be critical and analytical about what you're reading and how that's coming across to you in order to fully feel the empathy for a character or a story or an event, in my personal opinion. So I've done a lot of yapping, and I hope it's been clear. I didn't really plan this video out. I just wanted to sit down and like kind of word vomit my thoughts, I guess, on this topic. I think that spoiler-free reviews are important, and I'm still working on them all the time. Like I said, I struggled a lot when I was in high school and even in university with having my own opinions on things because I wanted to be correct, and it's involved a lot of forcing myself into spaces where I have to have my opinion and I need to find a way to properly vocalize it so that I can improve that skill set and feel more confident in having my opinions on reading. And it's an ever-evolving skill that I have, and I think it's one that I really value having developed and to continue to develop, and I just want to encourage other people to do so. It can feel uncomfortable to do, it can feel anxiety inducing to do if you're someone like me where you want to be correct, but just because you don't agree with people or the masses doesn't mean that you're incorrect if you're able to vocalize why you think that. Yeah, I guess that's kind of like the main reason. I think it also, when you're able to properly voice more exact reasonings why you either like or dislike a book. It avoids the situation where it feels like maybe somebody is disliking a really popular book just to be different. I think if you're able to properly vocalize that, then you avoid that situation. Which I think is like a whole other discussion I could be having, which is the idea of how it seems like people love to hate and say things are trash for things that tend to be liked by young women and girls. But I'm not here to talk about misogyny. Anyway, I would love to know your thoughts on spoiler-free reviews and critical thinking in books and it as a skill. All of that, if you think it's important, if you prefer spoiler or spoiler-free reviews. Any thoughts on this discussion, I'd love to hear it down below. If you liked the video, make sure to give it a like, give it a little thumbs up. If you haven't liked me, consider subscribing. I'd be happy to have you. And with that, I hope you're having a wonderful day today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.